Go for it. You came to the wrong county. I stand with my Jewish friends, and I'm honored to be on your hit list. It's an honor to be sought after by a bunch of punk thugs like you.
That was Florida Sheriff Mike Chitwood sending a message to neo-Nazis. You are not welcome. Awesome. So look, this is a response to a group that had been, showing up in Florida, around Florida, filming themselves, putting up signs, passing up anti-Semitic flyers and messages all over the Daytona Beach area. So now last week, an organization known as the GDL, or Goyim Defense League, because of course, right, had been leaving flyers on people's doors, hanging anti-Jewish banners from bridges, harassing people in the street, as well as projecting slogans praising Hitler on the side of the Daytona 500 track. That's pretty horrible stuff. Okay. Massively hateful, massively anti-Semitic. And so Chitwood says, look, I understand that there's free speech involved, but I think it goes beyond free speech. Now, before I get to that, first, I want to show you the rest of his press conference.
This is a neo-Nazi ideology on display. They wear GoPro cameras. They rent U-Haul trucks. They spent the time traveling up and down ISB during the 500, yelling obscenities from the back of the truck. Clearly, I don't see anything that people can say this is First Amendment. This is nothing but pure evil. And I want to share this. There's a lot of people in this room, and there's a lot of people around this country of the Jewish faith who are on their hit list. They try to besmirch your character. They try to put death threats out on you and threaten you and your family. Well, I wear that as a badge of honor because I, too, by these clown group, want to shut my big mouth and put a bullet in the back of my head. Go for it. That's my message to you. Go for it. You want to try to get into my computer and plant child porn in there with a group of people that have an IQ of a 12? Go for it. I challenge you. Go for it. You want to put surveillance on me 24 hours? Go for it. And the best of all, you're going to dox me and make me unelectable? Go for it.
Damn. All right. So look, obviously, if you're doing stalking, making threats and stuff, not exactly, following the law there. Okay. Look, speaking of criminal activity and some of the stuff that this group had been involved in, GDL members, some of them, at least 15, have records of arrests and charges that included things like stalking, threatening public officials, aggravated assault, murder, terroristic threats, murder, vandalism for defacing a memorial for victims of the Pulse nightclub massacre, as well as soliciting a 14-year-old for sex. These are the people that think that the Jewish people are ruining society. Those guys. And gals. But I would assume mostly guys. Okay. So, yeah. Now, Chitwood claims that, look, my biggest concern here, he says, is that the group like GDL will radicalize an active shooter. And pointed out that this might have already happened. Because just, days after the Speedway incident, a California man had reportedly that was reportedly inspired by the GDL ended up shooting 2 Orthodox Jewish people outside of a synagogue in Los Angeles. So that's why he wants to come down hard against the neo-Nazis in his area, telling them, hey, you picked the wrong place to spread your hateful nonsense. That's a strong message. Look, he also said this, quote, I don't think they've got the guts to pull the trigger themselves, but they know there's somebody out there that will do their bidding. And look, that is, he's not wrong. He then also vowed to stamp out extremism however he could, saying that if you stand by and you don't do anything, that the violence and intimidation win. Look, we live in a time right now where neo-Nazis are not only on the march. We've seen a lot of neo-Nazi groups. Again, this group terrorizing the Daytona, Florida area, but they also serve in public office. For example, I mean, Marjorie Greene. Look, Marjorie Greene calls herself a Christian nationalist. Another name for that, of course, is Nazi. She has spoken at a white nationalist conference set up by Nick Fuentes, an infamous neo-Nazi. And again, he's not at all shy about like blaming the Jews for everything. She came out also and talked about how there were space lasers,
Jewish space lasers,
that were operated by, or I'm sorry, owned by the Rothschilds that could have been causing forest fires. Now, she is also, of course, was involved in QAnon, was a big believer in QAnon, another anti-Semitic conspiracy theory that involved essentially centered around blood libel. Okay, saying that Hollywood elites and the New World Order, etc., globalists, another name for Jews, are drinking the blood of children and are paying for immigrants to replace American citizens. Marjorie Greene famously in favor of building a wall, and that's just one example. Okay. Speaking of walls, speaking of Trump, of course, he has also said a lot of yikesy things about Jewish people. And so, look, again, that's the reality of this political climate where neo-Nazis are just able to come out into the open and say horrible things and put out, anti-Semitic literature and possibly inspire acts of violence against them. It doesn't take much for people who are already primed and, armed to the teeth for them to come out and do an act of violence. And so that's what this guy is rightly worried about. So that said, look, it's actually kind of surprising, based on some of the reporting that I've done before, that there's actually a police officer who's like, oh yeah, I'm actually going to turn my attention to stop the neo-Nazis instead of being part of them. Because again, we've had lists, reports of police officers who belong to these far-right groups, some of which do peddle in racism and some anti-Semitism, and have said horrible things about their communities. This guy, as far as I know, he's like, no, I don't like this stuff. Get it out of my community. Our community. We're done with this. And by the way, finally, he's not mincing words. In an interview with the Daily Beast following Monday's press conference, Chitwood had one thing to say about the group, the GDL, their leader, who's not a great person, from what I've read, as well as their grotesque beliefs. He said this, quote, "Excuse my French, but fuck you, motherfucker." Yes! Yes! I love it. I love it. By the way, this same sheriff, also, some of his detractors, the neo-Nazis, of course, posted up a photo where he was wearing like a green bra, right? And he posted back, and he's like, yeah, you idiots, you take this picture of me doing a fundraiser in the middle of a fundraiser for breast cancer research, and then proceeded to call them not very bright. Look, I have issues with policing in this country, and of course I certainly have issues with a lot of cops, but this guy doesn't sound so bad. Yes!